Hello and welcome back to another breaking news update. My name is Jimmy Boyd and you are watching Boyd News. I want to thank you so much for being here today because we're going to be talking about the United Kingdom, okay? The British Army. Why are we talking about the British Army? Well, there's an article that's come out and some news that apparently the British Army has been warned that if they were ever to go to war with another country, like let's say Russia, China, or something like that, they would exhaust all their capabilities within 2 months. Okay, they would be completely out of action in just 2 months of fighting. That is very dangerous. Very, very dangerous, especially right now with what's going on, all the tensions going on throughout the world, and all these potential wars that can break out. Let's just talk about Russia alone, okay? That's just one of the wars that could potentially break out. Russia's been able to sustain their fighting in Ukraine for 2 years now, right? Almost 2 years. The British Army could not even withstand 2 months of fighting if they were to go to war with Russia. That's how terribly their stockpiles have been depleted, their ammunition piles, their troop numbers. Apparently, I'm hearing that their troop numbers could be dropping again right now, apparently to 72,500. And I think it was the defense minister was coming out and saying we needed to maintain 73,000 of a fighting strong army. Okay. And they're going to be dropping down to 72,500. So another 500 taken away from the military in the UK. So this whole hollowing out of the army in the UK has been going on since 2010. Okay, now granted, especially since the war in Afghanistan really started to slow down, the world has been in somewhat of a peacetime period. Okay, so not just the UK, but so many other countries, plenty of other European countries, and then even America has definitely slowed down on their military operations, and we were in just this time of peace where you weren't really needing to manufacture bullets and bombs and all these different things. So a lot of these countries, their militaries are very hollowed out. Okay, let's just look at the United States, for example. This is not even really militarily, but it's for the country. But this does affect the military, which is the Strategic Petroleum Reserves. Okay, when Biden got into office in 2020, he started depleting those petroleum reserves, the oil reserves that we have, all these oil barrels. He started selling them off to places like China, okay, and they are badly depleted, and those stockpiles are meant to be used during wartime. So it's not just happening. These types of things are not just happening in the UK, but this article that I have coming up here is talking about just that. So let's get into this. I think this is probably not a surprise to many people, but to maybe some it is, okay? And it definitely, if you haven't seen any of my warnings in any of my past videos before that, potential war is coming, and not only that, but mainly the West is not ready for a war at all. And I think that's why Biden is trying so hard to avoid a war with Iran right now, because we're just not ready for a war. Not even close. Not even close. We don't have the oil. We don't have the weaponry. We've been giving a lot of our weapons away to Ukraine. Just even Britain, they've been giving a lot of their weapons away to Ukraine. They've been giving tons and tons of weapons to Ukraine. So all these countries in the West, when they already had like a relatively low stockpile of any weaponry, let's just say weaponry alone, it's even lower now than it was just 2 years ago when the war in Ukraine started. So it's very dangerous. So I want to talk about this article a little bit and just show you how dangerous of a position the West is in if they were to get involved in some sort of major war with another country. So it says here, British Army would exhaust capabilities after 2 months of war, MPs told. Okay, and it says here, fighting resilience undermined by hollowing out of armed forces since 2010, Defense Committee hears. The UK's ability to fight an all-out war would be marred by the armed forces' capability, stockpile shortages, and a recruitment crisis. That's another issue. I forgot to bring that up. Recruitment crisis is a terrible problem right now. I know it is in the UK and also in the United States. All right. Just in the last like 3 years, like recruitment numbers have dropped immensely. Okay. We've got the smallest armies that we've had in a very long time in the West. So if anything were to happen, there's definitely going to have to be a conscription and a call up for citizens to go to war because there's not nearly enough members in the military to fight a war, not even close. The Commons Defense Committee heard that the hollowing out of the armed forces since 2010 had undermined the UK's war fighting resilience, and the army would exhaust its capabilities after the first couple months in a peer on peer war. Jeremy Quinn, the chair of the committee, said operations and continuing commitments meant the military was unable to devote sufficient training and resources to high intensity warfighting. Look at that. Unable to devote sufficient training and resources to high intensity warfighting. So you see what I mean? These countries like Britain, they've been at peace for so long now that they're used to like the calmness, but at the same time they're unable to put, time and training and effort and money and resources into training the military for potential war. Okay, that's a big thing that a lot of countries are not doing right now. They're barely just starting to do that now, and it may be too late because this war could be coming a lot sooner, and I think most of these countries are not ready for it. While able to deploy at short notice and to fulfill commitments, our inquiry found that readiness for all-out prolonged war has received insufficient attention and needs intense ongoing focus. Very true. Okay, and I do believe, if I'm not mistaken, the defense minister of the UK came out and said they were going to be upping the defense budget next year. I believe so. I think it was like 2.5 billion pounds. I believe so. It was going to be increasing next year, and a lot of that is due to a lot of the funding for Ukraine. So they are going to be boosting it next year, but not this year. The high tempo of operations and unrelenting pressure on our services has led to a drop in retention, compounded by a period of low recruitment and difficulties introducing and maintaining capabilities, thereby creating a vicious cycle. The panel suggested the unrelenting pressure on personnel had exacerbated the crisis in recruitment, with more people leaving the armed forces than joining. Look at that, more people leaving than joining. That's not good. The committee's report also said the military needed to be strategic about the resources we have, including how to maintain and replenish stockpiles and ensure equipment did not go to waste. Well, that is really hard to do when they're giving everything away to Ukraine, right? Ukraine is literally fighting this world war for the West. So the West is giving that. They're like, you know what? Just go ahead and fight the war for us. That way we don't have to kill our own citizens. You could just waste away all the Ukrainians that you want, and we'll just give you all these weapons, and you guys go ahead and fight the war for us. So the war has already began, two years ago. It already began. It's just the West is not directly fighting it with their own troops. Efforts by the Ministry of Defense to tackle the problem were not being carried out at the required pace, the report said, adding that readiness is essential to effective deterrence to our adversaries at a time of heightened geopolitical instability. Last month, the Defense Secretary Grant Shapps said the world was moving from a post-war to a pre-war world, and the UK must ensure its entire defense ecosystem is ready to defend its homeland. He insisted the size of the army would not dip below 73,000, which I do believe it is going down to 72,500. Under the Conservatives, amid growing concerns about further cuts to troop numbers. About 20,000 UK service personnel will take place in the largest NATO exercise since the end of the Cold War this year, testing the ability of the alliance to quickly deploy forces. However, the departure of Royal Navy aircraft carrier HMS Queen Elizabeth to lead the exercise has been canceled at the last minute after an issue with the propeller shaft was spotted during final checks. So I did hear about this. This just came out in the last day or so. Apparently this aircraft carrier, something went wrong with the propeller shaft, so it was diverted. It was supposed to actually attend this NATO exercise, the Steadfast Defender 24 that I reported on. It was supposed to go over there and take part in this, but something happened with it and it had to go get repaired. Okay, so the setback comes 18 months after its sister ship, HMS Prince of Wales, broke down off the Isle of Wight after it sailed for the U.S., having suffered a malfunction. So I mean, look at that. We've got equipment failing, major aircraft carriers breaking down, warships breaking down. Just the infrastructure for militaries in the West is just not there. Okay, the infrastructure is not there, and just everything is falling apart. Troop numbers are collapsing. More people are leaving than staying, and I know a lot of that had to do with many things that were going on in the last few years. A lot of political things as well. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. But these Western militaries are not nearly what they used to be. They're not even close. And it's very scary because if a war were to break out, I don't think many of these countries would be able to hang in very long. And we would definitely have to conscript probably hundreds of thousands of people in all these countries to fight this war because there's just not enough of actual troops that are ready to go. There's just not. The numbers are the lowest they've been in a very, very long time. And not only that, but just morale as well in the military. I feel like morale is just not as high as it used to be either, due to a lot of issues, political issues as well. Let me know what you think. Do we have anybody here that's watching that's in the military? If you are, go ahead and share some experiences for us down in the comments and let us know what is it like to be in the military right now, and do you see these kinds of effects, and do you have any concerns, and do you think that we don't have enough troops should a war break out? Is the U.S. ready for a war? Is the U.K. ready for a war? Is any of these countries ready, really? I'm very curious to know that. If anybody here watching is in the military, please comment below. That ship will now be ready to take place of the 3 billion pound fleet flagship on the NATO exercise, which will involve more than 40 vessels. The MOD has been contacted for comment. So, I mean, just I don't know what else to say other than that. That these militaries are just not ready. They're not, and like I said, just the U.S. alone. Okay, maybe they have the strongest military in the world, capability wise, in terms of technology and equipment, maybe. But in terms of fighting force and everything, I don't know. Maybe not. Okay, and the U.S. has a lot of issues right now. All right, just that strategic petroleum reserve issue. Okay, if the U.S. were to go to war, they're going to be able to maintain that in terms of oil. Are we going to have enough oil to fight that? Is the West going to have enough oil to fight that war? Because let's just say a war breaks out in the Middle East. Where's all the oil going to come from? Okay, oil is going to skyrocket. And so much oil comes out of the Middle East and supplies many different countries. How do you think that's going to affect wars? It's definitely going to affect wars. And Iran has a lot of the oil over there. Iraq, Syria, a lot of these countries over here in the Middle East hold a large majority of the oil for the entire world. So that's going to be a big problem if war breaks out just in the Middle East. And I think that's why Biden is trying so hard to stay away from that war over there and get away from Iran, because it would really make things pop off over there. And then, when we have all these problems like here in the UK, these guys would be just as badly affected by it. And if they can't stay in the fight for even just 2 months, it's probably not just troop numbers and equipment and things like that. A lot of it could be oil as well. It could be oil issues, and it all depends on who goes to war with who, where the fighting takes place, and there's so many different factors here. But overall, I think most of us could agree that definitely the West is not ready for war, and that's why they're doing this Steadfast 2024 Defender exercise, or whatever it's called, this NATO exercise. They're doing this to see if they even have the ability to defend themselves, okay? And a lot of this has to do with the fact, too, that by the end of the year, at least in my opinion, this is a possibility here, so hear me out, is if Trump gets into office, I've been talking about this for a while now, that if he gets in, he's been talking about it a lot in the past, especially when he was a president back in 2016 to 2020. He talked a lot about trying to remove the United States out of NATO. And if he does that, if he is able to successfully do that, let's say he gets in as president in November, and the U.S. hops out of NATO, the Europe is going to be in a very, very tight position there. I wouldn't even be surprised if NATO just completely fell apart. But um, let's say they stay together, that's going to be a big problem for NATO now, because the U.S. is like obviously the top dog there. They're the strongest ally out of all the allies, right? So if they hop out, that means Europe's going to be on their own should they be attacked by Russia or anything like that. They're going to be completely on their own if NATO gets attacked and they declare Article 4 or Article 5, excuse me. So, yeah, it's very, very scary what's happening here. And if you follow this stuff, if you stick around on this channel and you see the things that I'm putting out every single day, there's a lot of warning signs that we're in big trouble here. Okay, the entire West is in big, big trouble. The entire world is, okay? It's not just the West, but I'm speaking primarily in the West because I'm in the West, and probably most of us watching this are in the West. So if you're a civilian in the West, you know, you're in grave danger here. And with all these kinds of reports coming out, it's very possible a war could break out. Something major could happen, and we could be in big trouble here in the short term. So I hope you're all ready for it, and you know, just stay safe out there. And I'm gonna keep an eye on this. If any other information comes out, maybe there'll be more reports in other countries. I'll definitely be reporting that. But this is the latest on the British Army. Okay, so the British Army would be out of action in just 2 months if they were to get into a war. So keep that in the back of your mind and think about that if you live in the UK. So you know, you could be called up for conscription should a war break out. Very likely. All right, so. Hope you got something out of this. I want to thank you guys so much for being here today and listening to me. So if you enjoyed this video, please like the video. And also, if you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing to the channel. Hit the notification bell. That way YouTube can notify you as soon as a new video goes live. And with that, I hope you all have a great day. Thank you again so much for being here. And we'll see you all in the next one. Everybody, take care. God bless. And we'll see you later.